In this video, we'll talk about why amateur pitchers, youth pitchers, are often very inconsistent in their strike throwing and what you as a player or a coach or a parent can do about it. So if you're new here, I'm Dan Blewett. I'm a former pro pitcher. I used to own a baseball academy. Today I teach the bigger skills here on YouTube, and you can find my online courses and my 4 baseball books in the description below. So let's talk about pitching consistency. I get emails from parents pretty regularly about this. They say, hey, my son's been doing lessons. He's been throwing a lot. He's been doing all the things, but he's still pretty inconsistent. He'll have a really good game. They don't have a game where he walks 5 batters. What's the deal? How can I help them with this? So let's talk about a couple things that I've observed over the years as a pitching coach and as a pitcher myself. Number one, you have to go easy on your kids when it comes to their consistency. This is just the thing that is going to take a lot of time to iron out. Really capable high school pitchers are usually not very consistent. This is because they're still growing into their mechanics. They're still adjusting the amount of sleep they get, the amount of food they eat, which can affect their velocity, their nutrition on a daily and weekly basis. They're continuing to improve their mechanics, and that tinkering is just like affecting any other machine. If you just tinker on your car every day, you're gonna have a little bit of different horsepower any given day, right? If you're tinkering with your mechanics constantly, which most young pitchers are because they're still learning and developing, that's gonna affect their consistency, velocity-wise, command-wise, the quality of their off-speed stuff. As they continue to evolve and grow into their bodies, it's just going to be inconsistent. So understand that's part of the growing pains, and that most pitchers don't really start to level out that much until they're much older. Like college age, they start to really hit their stride where they're consistent on all their routines, their mechanics are relatively stable, etc., etc., etc. So just be generous and give them the benefit of the doubt, that understanding that youth pitchers in general are inconsistent creatures. Number 2 thing to remember is they don't have consistent practice habits. A lot of times they're not doing the things they need to do to consistently command the baseball. If I was going to start pitching again today in a men's league, which I'm not, I know that for me to be as good as I want to be, to just be like a consistent, my arm feels okay, I can throw strikes, I can go 5-6 innings. I know that for me to do that, I would have to start throwing a month before my start and throw 3 days a week the first week, 4 days a week the second week, then 5 and 6 days a week building up. And I have to consistently spin all my stuff, work on my drills, do my arm care. There's a lot of things to get consistent contact time with the baseball and to get in touch with my mechanics, to get everything working together fluidly, to really be decent and consistent. I know that now. It took me a long time to learn that. So the practice habits, in addition to everything else, they're going to start to level off as they get better coaching, they get more consistent. Those things are going to take time as well. So if your kid's young, they're probably still playing catch, kind of lazy. They're playing a lot of different positions. They might be playing shortstop most of the weekend and only pitch one day. Those things all affect consistency. It's not like they're pro players where every day is tuned to make them ready for their start day or to make them ready to pitch tonight and tomorrow as a reliever. So just understand that practice habits are also a really big piece of this. The next big thing is the mental aspect of the game. Just when pitchers are starting to feel like, okay, I know how to throw a curveball, I know how to throw a changeup, my mechanics are pretty good, then they start getting thrown into really high pressure situations. Okay, now I'm playing varsity baseball, and I know that if I don't pitch well, I might not be a starter anymore. I only get a couple chances and I got to make good on them. That's a lot of pressure that affects how well they pitch. And they have to learn to deal with that basically just by getting thrown in the fire. So at every time we feel like, all right, as parents, our kids really leveling off. They look mechanically very consistent. Their habits are very consistent. Everything physically is looking pretty good, but that earns them more scary, high-pressure situations that they haven't faced before. And those are really difficult to deal with, and those can send their consistency plummeting back down yet again. It is really hard to pitch when scouts are watching you, or when you know you could get benched if you don't have a good outing today, or if your girlfriend's watching and all the kids from school are watching and there's a lot of pressure and maybe there's some negative parents. There's a lot of things riding mentally on a pitcher's performance nowadays, not even taking into considering the recruiting aspects. Kids know they have to pitch well if they want to get recruited, right? That's another big piece, that they go out there with this heavy mind and they're trying to control stuff, they're tense, they're trying to guide their stuff to make sure everything's perfect, and when you try to be perfect, you go the opposite direction, you become much more imperfect. So understand that the mental part of the game, and having a mental practice and a mental routine is an important part for consistency, but that's going to come later for most pitchers. It's a lot to start to lump all these different things on a young pitcher. Like, hey, you have to practice all the time, you have to do your arm care all the time, you have to do your pitching drills at home, you have to have a mental practice too. That's a lot. I didn't do that when I was a kid. And so you have to just sort of like bide your time as a parent and as a coach as to say, like, when should I introduce all these new things that can help them, knowing that if I pile on too much too soon, it's probably going to suck a lot of the fun out of it. And then you might lose the kid, they might quit because it becomes too much like a job. So there's a lot of complicating factors, but the mental side of the game is a big one when it comes to consistency. Some pitchers are much better at handling pressure, some are not. Some kids are highly competitive, and when they get in pressure, they actually can become better and more focused. Some kids are not that way. And so all these are different factors that it just comes down to knowing who you're coaching or who your kid is or who you are as a pitcher and how that's going to affect you, and then how you can work on that in practice to get better. So what should you do if you want to become more consistent as a pitcher? First of all, you just have to be patient. Take some solace in the fact that if you're getting a little bit better each year, if your mechanics are looking smoother, if you're throwing harder, if your curveball is getting sharper, your changeup's getting more consistent, take the little wins as a big positive and give yourself a pat on the back and be encouraging as a parent or a coach when you see some of the pieces of the puzzle starting to fit in place. Don't expect them to learn a new pitch, learn another new pitch, add 5 miles per hour, and make a much better travel team, and then suddenly be ultra consistent all at once. Allow them to fail in some of these different bins. Like, hey, your curveball wasn't as consistent as we'd hoped this year, but I thought your changeup was really good. It was great to see that improve, and your mechanics look way smoother than last year, and you look more mentally relaxed. That's a lot of really positive stuff to build on, right? As a parent, just take it as it comes. As a coach, take it as it comes. For me as a coach, I was never trying to overload players too much. Give them a little bit of guidance, give them a couple new things to work on, see how they go, but I just didn't want to overwhelm them, knowing that if they're trying to think of 17 different things on the mound, it's going to make everything worse. So be patient. Try to add new things into their routines, into their practice habits. Try to clean up the way they play catch, clean up the way they throw bullpens, clean up the way they eat, have them get more sleep, all these different things. Add little bits and pieces every year, and that will pay dividends in the long run, all right? If you have any questions, leave me in the comments below. Check out my books and online courses that can help you on your baseball journey, and I'll see you here in the next video.